Hello and welcome to the program, UFO Warning. In this episode, we're talking about whistleblower spits fire. That's correct, whistleblower spits fire. And we're talking about David Grusch, who I happen to think is probably one of the most interesting whistleblowers to come forward. Seems like the most authentic, sincere guy out there to me. He does make some public appearances, but I don't see him exploiting his role like I do some of the folks. He just seems genuine. And so he caught my attention because they had another one of these press conferences here a few days ago. And I thought, well, maybe. But then I got to reading on a little bit. I just thought, I have to talk about this because I know people are interested in the current news, what's happening. And so I wanted to take a look at this. This first article is from foxnews.com. It says, UFO whistleblower claims billions in secret spending hidden from Congress. Now, it's written by Morgan Phillips, June 10th, 2026. Looks like a young lady over there at Fox. Former intelligence officer urged the Defense Intelligence Agency to release documents for congressional review. We've talked about this many times on the program about all this money that goes into black projects, these spatial access projects, where there's just a few congressmen involved in overseeing them, and how the deep state has basically just taken on this role where they act for all intent and purpose independently of the folks that we vote in there in Washington, D.C. And a lot of our favorite congressmen talk about the same thing. It says, unidentified aerial phenomena whistleblower and former Air Force intelligence officer David Grusch accused intelligence agencies Tuesday of hiding billions of dollars in secret government spending from Congress as lawmakers renewed demands for records they say federal officials continue to withhold. So we have the situation where Trump makes a broad statement, release these, and then people send a FOIA request in, no response. Trump tells them, release their records, and then we get this very small, very conservative release of records that really doesn't tell us anything. It says his investigation uncovered what he described as slush funds, pools of money allegedly operating outside normal congressional oversight channels worth billions of dollars annually that were allegedly used to support activities operating outside normal oversight channels, Grusch said, speaking at a Capitol Hill event alongside members of the House Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets. Well, this extends to some of the UFO whistleblowers that we're talking about recently, like with Louis Elizondo and ATEP. How was that funded? With $2 million that Harry Reid supposedly just snapped his fingers and manifested out of thin air, taxpayer dollars. So we have these pools of dollars all over the place. And when you have all this money that's unaccounted for or nobody's shepherding it, you are going to have corruption. Says, quote, this is also a real fraud, waste, and abuse issue, Grusch said. I agree. During my investigation, I found slush funds to the tune of billions of dollars per annum for these activities. Boy, I bet that made some people happy, didn't it? The allegations come as lawmakers and the Trump administration have intensified efforts to declassify government unidentified aerial phenomena records, releasing hundreds of pages of previously secret files and renewing pressure on agencies to disclose what they know about unexplained aerial incidents. Grusch, who served on the Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force and later is the National Reconnaissance Office representative to the task force, first gained national attention in 2023 when he testified before Congress about alleged government efforts to recover and study unidentified craft. The Trump administration's fiscal year 2027 budget includes nearly $132 billion in military and national intelligence spending, much of it contained in classified programs accessible only to a limited group of cleared officials and lawmakers. Think about that, $132 billion. If we think about people working full-time jobs and paying taxes in this country, probably around $130 million. You could pretty much say that if you're working and you're paying taxes, income taxes, that's $1,000 a piece for your contribution. $1,000 a year, $100 a month that you're kicking in for these secret military national intelligence spending. This is just the intelligence spending, not counting all the other stuff. It's just wild. Asked what the government knows about non-human intelligence, Grusch claimed the government is aware of several different alien species. It's a continuum from corporeal bipedal type life to, what I would consider is like sentient plasma life, Grusch said. But there are several that this government is aware of. He did not elaborate on the claim or provide evidence during the event. Well, I would imagine that he's probably under some pretty serious threat if he's for real. Grusch specifically accused the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, the Pentagon's primary military intelligence agency, of obstructing congressional oversight efforts, arguing that records requested by lawmakers have not been fully provided, despite what he described as lawful requests from Congress. He urged the agency to release additional documents for review and declassification. Well, we see the same thing with every administration. They make requests, and those requests are just kicked down the road. The DIA could not immediately be reached for comment. Can they ever be? The Pentagon has consistently said investigations have not uncovered verified evidence of extraterrestrial technology, and previous government reviews have disputed claims that secret crash retrieval programs exist. A bipartisan group of lawmakers joined Grusch during the press conference, arguing that agencies have continued to resist congressional efforts to obtain information related to unidentified anomalous phenomena. If there's nothing there, then why not release the documents proving that there's nothing there? We would ask, and they would then push back. We would ask more questions, and the pushback became more significant, said Representative Jared Moskowitz, Democrat, Florida. We would try to put language in an amendment in a bill, and they would oppose it. There must be real penalties for officials who knowingly withhold information from Congress, added Representative Eric Burleson, Republican, Missouri. It seems like we've got about a half a dozen guys in Congress that aren't compromised some way or another. And when these guys just keep going them after them, it's kind of like a little terrier dogs there just attacking the feet of the big state day after day. Good on them. But you just wonder, when are we ever going to find anything out? Moskowitz also tied the debate to broader concerns about Pentagon accountability. There's trillions of dollars missing at the Pentagon. Where does that money go, he said. The Pentagon has failed 7 consecutive audits, though defense officials have said those findings reflect long-standing challenges tracking assets and accounting systems across the department. Yeah, let me know how that works out for you, that kind of defense, if you get audited by the IRS. If you work for a big corporation and you're an accountant and your company's missing, let's just say millions, if not trillions of dollars, and your defense is, well, we have long-standing challenges. Let me know how that works out for you. You can drop us a line from federal prison. Goes on down and says, Grusch said additional witnesses remain reluctant to come forward because of concerns about retaliation and legal exposure. Well, if there's this much money involved, you can rest assured retaliation would be a big, big issue. Burleson called on President Trump to waive non-disclosure agreements for individuals with knowledge of alleged government UAP programs and grant immunity to those willing to testify. Grant immunity to anyone who has already come forward and everyone who will come forward, Burleson said. Open the door and let them speak. Yeah, we need some kind of a truth commission here. Congress is requesting specific records and videos, Burleson said. These agencies and contractors know that we know that they exist, and we're going to get them released. Well, I can only hope. Burleson said lawmakers have continued pressing agencies and defense contractors for records they believe remain classified despite recent disclosure efforts. He said his office obtained MQ-9 footage of a UAP incident off the coast of Yemen that was delivered through what he described as Tom Clancy-style dead drop. Now listen, this is not okay. We need to have this stuff released through regular and open chains of command. That way we can track the chain of custody on this stuff. Otherwise, we end up like with a situation like we had with the Tic Tac, where private individuals are profiting off this. Just saw a thing on Twitter the other day where Jeremy Corbell was saying, if they don't release this stuff, then I'm going to have to release these videos that I have. Look, this is not okay. We should not be having private journalists, so-called, profiteering from video that was taken with government resources. It's not okay. It's not cool. Goes on, it says, lawmakers argued that additional disclosures may depend on persuading more witnesses to come forward. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, Republican Florida, who chairs the House task force examining the issue, said lawmakers are discussing immunity protections for individuals with knowledge of alleged craft locations, recovered materials, or advanced technologies. The renewed push comes as lawmakers seek greater access to information tied to some of the government's most closely held programs. Federal investigators recently alleged that former CIA official David Grusch, Rush, used a fraudulent special access program as part of a scheme involving more than $40 million in gold bars and millions in government funds, drawing renewed attention to how highly restricted government programs can operate with limited outside visibility. Well, who would have imagined? Who could possibly have imagined that if you have a program that is getting millions, if not billions of dollars from the federal government, and only 5 or 6 out of the 565 folks at Capitol Hill are allowed to see what's going on in the program, that somebody might steal from that program? $40 million in gold bars this guy got. That's what, according to the FBI. How did he get them? I don't know. I guess he just asked for them. It's a pretty good trick, huh? The event comes weeks after the Trump administration released a major tranche of previously classified UAP records, including military reports, sensor data, and witness accounts that had long remained hidden from public view. Now, there really weren't any, that I could see at least, breakout videos or revelations in there, but it is important because it shows us that the government has been tracking this stuff for a long time. Finishes up, it says, lawmakers and disclosure advocates have pointed to those releases as evidence the government is becoming more transparent about UAP investigations, arguing that significant amounts of information remain classified. I'm more of the mind that Trump is kind of the camel trying to get his nose under the tent, and these guys are doing everything they can to keep him from sticking his big head inside the tent. They're giving us a little something around the edges, but so far nothing too substantial. I think the greatest hope is that maybe there'll be a thread in there somewhere that if someone who knows something can put the dots together, can grab that thread and pull on it hard enough that some of these deep state lies will begin to unravel. Now, I want to finish up here with this next article from News Nation talking about this and David Grusch's comments at newsnationnow.com. It says, government aware of several kinds of aliens, UFO whistleblower. This is written by Tatina Carter and Steph Whiteside, dated June 9th, 2026. A UFO whistleblower says there are multiple kinds of alien life, and there are people in the U.S. government who know about it. Whistleblower David Grusch said the U.S. government is aware of several kinds of extraterrestrial life ranging in complexity. Now, I'm thinking maybe they're saying this stuff is ranging from just the regular stuff that we see around us to this extra-dimensional stuff that explains a lot of these shape-shifting craft that we see, borders on or maybe even into the spiritual dynamic of this whole subject. Lawmakers and UAP whistleblowers gathered at the U.S. Capitol Tuesday to renew calls for greater government transparency, including immunity for whistleblowers. The group also called for the release of files related to alleged encounters with non-human beings and information regarding extraterrestrial life. Secrecy is the currency of the deep state. I see them as not being too likely to give that up, but it's good that these Congress people are calling for that at least. Lawmakers called for the release of specific records, including those related to the 1996 Varginha incident. And we've talked about that here. This is a really spooky situation that happened down there in Brazil, which took place in Varginha, Brazil. Witnesses to the incident report contact with non-human sentient beings and said those beings were transported to the U.S. Those nasty little demon-looking creatures that were lurking about there after that UFO sighting. Some really strange stuff. We should go back and revisit that at some point. It was a super interesting story. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, Republican Florida, said lawmakers are requesting that the White House grant immunity to whistleblowers who come forward with information, including the locations of UFOs and advanced technology. For decades, the American people have been treated like children, told there are government secrets they just don't get to know. Representative Eric Burlison, Republican, Missouri, said of the secrecy around the subject. He described what he called a Tom Clancy-style dead drop of information to his office, saying nobody should be afraid to provide information to Congress. You wonder how anonymous this dead drop would be. I mean, I have to think that there'd be cameras everywhere in Washington, D.C. Burleson echoed Luna's call for immunity and called on President Donald Trump to waive all non-disclosure agreements for UFO whistleblowers to allow them to speak freely. Disclosure today, disclosure tomorrow, said Representative Gerald Maskowitz, Democrat, Florida. The American people deserve to know. Lawmakers also stressed that this is not just about potential evidence of extraterrestrials, but a question of where the Pentagon is spending money and whether it is avoiding congressional oversight. Clearly, they're avoiding congressional oversight, and that's why these SPACs are created to begin with. They don't want people looking at where the money's going. They're going to tell you that it's because of defense concerns, but it also takes away a lot of accountability. Former intelligence officer Grusch, who gave News Nation his first on-the-record interview as a whistleblower in 2023, claiming the government had recovered vehicles of non-human origin, also called for more transparency. The topics that we're discussing here today go beyond life in the universe, Grusch said, citing national security uses posed by UAPs. Along with lawmakers, Grusch accused those in government of gatekeeping information around UFOs. Political appointees have not complied with the disclosure law, he said. Now think about it. They're political appointees, so that means Donald Trump is their boss, like it or not. He says, release the information. And they ignore him. I mean, if you had an employee and you gave them a direct order to do something and it wasn't illegal and they refused to do it, what's your response? Well, your response probably should be to fire them and hire someone that will do it. And that's what I would tell Donald Trump. He had that whole show based on you're fired. Seems like he could start learning how to do that once in a while. I don't know. Representative Tim Burchett, Republican, Tennessee, also decried roadblocks, saying if lawmakers toured Area 51, all they would get is a T-shirt because the government would move everything else. At this point, I almost think Area 51's probably been pretty well cleaned up anyway. They've surely moved on to somewhere else. Organizers say participants will urge Congress and the Trump administration to release additional records, strengthen whistleblower protections, and advance legislation designed to increase transparency around unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs, the government's term for UFOs. News Nation's Ross Coulthart, who has been one of those leading the push on UAP transparency, will examine the path to disclosure from ancient sightings to Hollywood fascination on June 13th at 8 p.m. A little plug there for Ross's show. You know, Ross does a lot of interesting stuff. I'll give him credit. Government says it's transparent on UAPs. Advocates disagree. Supporters of greater disclosure argue Congress and the public still do not have access to all government records related to UAP investigations. Well, I think that goes without saying, doesn't it? They say key information remains classified despite years of hearings, whistleblowers' testimony, and promises of increased transparency. We've been through this over and over and over again at Greenwald in his Black Vault there, constantly putting in FOIA requests, probably more than anybody that I'm aware of. And then sometimes he gets some good stuff, but a lot of times he just gets pages of blacked out stuff. I've talked about it before, but there's the one case where he put in the FOIA for a UFO case in Korea from 70 years ago, and it came back blacked out. 70 years, still blacked out? I mean, I don't know. How far back does the blackout stuff go? To World War I? The Civil War? I mean, at what point does it just not matter anymore? It's crazy. Some lawmakers have also accused federal agencies of withholding information from Congress, allegations that agencies have denied. How can you deny that when you have these SPAC programs where it says right in their charters that only a handful of Congress people are allowed to see what they're spending the money on. The dispute has fueled a broader debate over government secrecy and whether officials have been fully forthcoming about what they know regarding unexplained sightings reported by military personnel. Well, we know that this stuff is compartmentalized. So how could you say that they've been less than forthcoming? That's the design of the system, is to not be forthcoming. Grusch became one of the most prominent figures in UAP debate after coming forward in 2023 with allegations the government was withholding information about recovered craft and secret programs tied to unidentified aerial phenomena. Just think, if this guy's for real, I kind of think he is. Think of the stress he must live under knowing this stuff and not being able to talk about some of the stuff that he knows. I've read articles where he's been described as a little bit, I don't know if you'd say paranoid, but definitely has his head on the swivel because of threats and stuff. You couldn't blame him. The former intelligence officer told News Nation exclusively he learned of efforts to retrieve and study vehicles of non-human origin while working with the government's UAP task force, while Grusch's allegations helped spark congressional hearings and renew public interest in UAPs. A 2024 Arrow review found no verifiable evidence. We've been through this with Sean Kirkpatrick and this, what I consider an absolutely useless AAR review. Not worth the paper it's printed on as far as I'm concerned. Just misdirection and misinformation and disinformation. No verifiable evidence the U.S. government possesses extraterrestrial technology or operates hidden programs to reverse engineer such technology. Oh, and we're supposed to believe that. Well, it's public record that the CIA founded In-Q-Tel. And they founded In-Q-Tel to sweep up emerging technologies so they could have it, and we can't. That's in the public record. We've talked about it online. So I'm not supposed to suspect that if the government thought there might be ET craft around, they wouldn't try to locate it and reverse engineer it. I'm sorry, but I can't go along with that. Well, I'm glad to see that some of these congressmen are still fighting the good fight. I know they get a lot of grief on Twitter, and I know I follow Twitter, and there's some counters on there. There's definitely some self-appointed debunkers. Some of them are mildly amusing, and some of them are just annoying after a while. It must pay good because they're on there all day, every day. I can't seem to get my followers up past about 414. It's been stuck there for months. I'll gain one, lose one. But if you get on there as a UFO debunker, boy, you can have a crowd in no time. It's crazy how that works, isn't it? Anyway, glad to see Grusch is still there. Glad to see he's still safe. And I guess he must be being careful. However you feel about the guy, he's definitely lit up this conversation a little bit. If you like the program, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. Doesn't cost a dime. As always, thanks to the folks that financially support the program. It does really help. Until next time, this is UFO Warning, over and out.